Guidance was definitely light. The cash flow guidance was worse. But I think people are anchoring on, hey, the second half has a pretty good content slate. They're taking pricing up, and they're still guiding to growth overall subs this year versus last year. So the story is pretty much, let's look past 2Q. Second half looks really, really strong, and that's got people back into the stock. I was surprised by it as well. I thought there'd be a pause. I guess the stock, as you were saying, has been kind of flat since January. So, people may have come back into it, but I thought it was going to pause for a bit as people just kind of start thinking about the changing landscape in SVOD.
They were talking about working through the pricing increase on their most popular plan. Prices, I believe, went up to $13 from $11. And so you had new subscribers coming on, but you had slightly higher churn for existing. Isn't there some concern that that could actually persist?
Well, their guide is this is all happening in 2Q. You're going to have higher elevated churn. They've not talked about 3Q and 4Q, right? So the question is, okay, once those prices come through, is it back to normal? Their content slate in the second half is really strong. So I think the street's saying, well, look at what they're bringing. Right. There's no way that they'll have slowing growth.
Stranger Things and The Crown, I mean, that's going to be big for them in the second half?
Well, we did a survey, right? We looked at their top shows. Orange is the New Black, Stranger Things, The Crown are like 3 of the top 7 shows in terms of what people want to watch. So you have, and then you have a new Marty Scorsese movie coming in. There's a lot of content coming.
We talk about spending though, long term. One of the things they said was, we're not going to take on new debt, Tag. We're actually going to be able to run this thing without extra money. Do you believe that?
Well, they're going to take on new debt this year, right? No. Their point is that longer term the debt's going to slow. My big question with all this is SVOD a good business? Disney's getting into the game, Apple's in the game. I have this debate with clients all the time. Is it a great
SVOD meaning subscription video on demand?
Is this a good business or a great business? And that's my view is that there's constant spending needed. There's pricing kind of limits to the business model. I think it's a good business, but it's not like Google search or Facebook advertising. It doesn't have this gigantic moat around it, right? Spending is the moat.
But let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
You think about an HBO today,
right?
Or you think about a Showtime, or you think about some of these other brands and services, clearly smaller brands and services,
right.
But they punch above their weight, if you will, on a relative basis because they just don't spend nearly the same amount of money on content.
Right.
And so the question long term is, can Netflix do the same? Can Netflix just get better at selecting the right stuff?
Right. So this is an interesting topic. I would argue that moving movies from the theatrical window into the SVOD window is a really valuable thing for consumers, right? So you can go pay $10 to see a Disney movie, or you could see it in the SVOD window. Our view is that Netflix has to spend a lot more on theatrical, on movies, to kind of create that value of, hey, there are movies that you want to see that will cost you $10 to $20 in theater, but they're available here. So part of the thinking is the studios control a ton of really great library content. Netflix has to rebuild a library,
right,
which is expensive. But when you get to that resting point, that's the debate. Like when you get to this place of...
But what's the resting point? Is that a decade worth of movies you have to make? I don't know if you noticed. I don't know if you just saw the announcement, because we're right across the street from Bryant Park.
Right.
HBO used to sponsor the movie night at Bryant Park in the summers.
Right.
Guess who's doing it now?
Netflix, right.
I mean, it's just a transformation in terms of how you even think about that brand.
Right. And one of the questions, one of Joe's favorite companies, AT&T, the question for AT&T is, how's HBO going to be run differently, right? So HBO and Warner's have been separated for a while. Warner's has probably the second best content library in the world. Do you then take that library and dump it on HBO? And so far, you've not done that. And I think at some point you have to wake up and say, there's so much content.
But isn't that what's going to happen with whatever you think the Warner Media Plus proposition is going to be?
But they're running it as two separate businesses. And my point is HBO is the lead horse. HBO should be made stronger. Running 3 more SVOD services.
That's interesting because there's been a big debate inside of AT&T and Time Warner, whatever you think this combination is now, about the HBO brand. Is it a piece of a larger puzzle, or is it the puzzle and you're going to put other pieces into it, right? And whether that brand can actually extend beyond sort of this idea of premium drama comedy to all sorts of other things.
Right. And my argument is, why are you selling Friends to Netflix, right? Friends could be embedded in HBO Go, HBO Now, right?
But it will be eventually.
We don't.
2 or 3 years from now, you don't think it will be?
They had a chance this year to do it, and they took a $100 million check to make a quarter.
But that's because they didn't. You think it was to make the
let's say
quarter?
they
They
did
couldn't
that.
figure it
Let's
out
say they
yet.
did that. Wouldn't that be a huge competitor for Netflix?
Well, that's so one of the
wouldn't that strengthen?
one of the questions we're going to talk about is, yes, is the world going to change to be more, companies will be more internally licensing to themselves, right? So everyone's going to have their own product, but not everyone can do that, right? So Time Warner can do that, Disney can do that, Comcast NBCU is not going in that direction, right? So this is the beginning of perhaps a strategy change. What Disney did and the response they got, the investor relations department pretty much did a great job in building the case. Stock got re-rated in a day. Does that set off alarm bells in other places that we should be doing
What
this?
happens to Hulu in all this? We've been debating, now that you're down to Disney owning this thing, with Comcast, owning a piece. What's the long-term play here?
I think Comcast stays in it to be an irritant, a pebble in the shoe of Disney. Because
and a beneficiary, given that Disney's going to have to put a lot of muscle behind this thing.
Yeah, they're going to probably bundle Disney Plus and Hulu, and all of a sudden,
great beneficiary
Comcast rides along that. Right, exactly. So,
but is the long-term play that you think Disney buys out Comcast, the long-term play that you spin out Hulu, is the long-term play that Comcast in the end tries to take Hulu back?
I think the long-term play, if they had their choice, would be let's get Comcast out of this partnership. Let's create Hulu for adults, Disney Plus for kids and families, put them together, bundle them together, create one bundled service. But you can't do that until you get the Comcast guys out of that relationship, and they're not going anywhere right now. That's what I think.